Welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast, and what do you know, it's been a big week in gaming. I'm Intergot for episode 58 on this Halloween, Sunday the 31st of October 2021. In this show, we'll be discussing what the hell is going on with Facebook, Meta, and Oculus, highlights from the latest PlayStation State of Play, impressions of the controversial Switch Online expansion pack, and our super secret special showcase of spooky games. As always, I'm joined by Mike.
Hello there, everyone.
And Swinny.
Hello.
And if you want to support the show, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, review us. You can find all the links on all platforms on bigwigpod.com. Swinny, I'm excited by this note that you've got on the run sheet. A little bit of hype.
Yes. Once again, I'd like to hype my upcoming Kemco RPG tier list. The more times I include it in our hype section, the closer we'll get to reality.
I can't wait.
One day, potentially early December, which is like over a month away. So look forward to more hype about this.
I'm just thinking, what do you reckon will get more views? The Kemco tier list or my Mario Kart tier list?
I don't know. We've been surprised before by certain things being popular, but
True.
I will say, not only is it Halloween, but I'm getting a spooky sense of deja vu right now.
Yeah, we all are. We all are. Should we let in any secret special surprises?
I think we should say that we unfortunately recorded like the first 30 to 40 minutes of the show.
It's all about that, yeah.
45 minutes.
It didn't work. It didn't record. Well, all we could hear is Intergot just talking to himself and us just nodding along. So,
And I normally rehash a lot of jokes, but now I got to rehash the jokes straight after. This just
practice makes perfect. The punchline will be better this time. You can lead up to it because you've already delivered once.
That's true.
Maybe this is going to be our new thing where we record every episode twice. The first time all the way through 2 hours or so, delete it, and then start again. Because they always say trash the first draft and you'll have a better second draft. So
That sounds like an awesome use of our time.
look at this, we're bouncing off each other.
I'm sure that's what Joe Rogan does each time. He just records every show twice.
Yeah.
And the second one's the one that goes up.
Definitely, yeah, exactly. It's like 24 hours of recording a week. All right, well, let's jump into the news for the the banter for the week. See, this is not a good start.
This is authentic, though. It's good.
So this week it's been Halloween, so we played a few spooky games that we will keep secret, Mike. So this is something that the listeners have missed out on, that Mike revealed his game and then also pretty much my game, even after we told him not to.
I know.
But now we'll see if he reveals it again. But
That's because he was dropped as a child in the head.
what have you been playing this week, Mike?
That's why I'm wearing this protector pet now. So, can't tell you what I've been playing this week. Other than Echo Generation. So that's the game that's when he specifically did not. Well, it's not that he didn't like the game. He kind of said a few negative things about it. So of course, naturally, I had to go give it a crack just to prove him wrong. But unfortunately, I think I got to give him credit. He was pretty spot on about a lot of things that he said. Although, as we learned on the first time we did this recording, the first boss wasn't actually that difficult for me. But again, I echo all your thoughts about Echo Generation, no pun intended.
Oh.
The game needs a bit of an overhaul in terms of rebalancing it, because it's such a shame. I love the way it looks. I love the music. I love the homage to the 80s sort of thing. It's a really, really cool game, and I think it deserves to be, I wouldn't say polished in the sense that, because the game feels polished, if you know what I mean. It needs to be tweaked,
Balanced?
to make it more accessible and balanced properly. Yeah, because it's I love it. Otherwise, it's really, really cool. And besides that, I can't talk about the other two because they're the spooky games that
Not yet. We will talk about it later. So if you want
to talk about it,
you want to know the spooky show that Mike's played, we'll find out later. But with Echo Generation, that's why I wanted to reach out to the dev, because I wanted to know, like, did they balance it in that way on purpose? Did they want to piss people off and challenge them and grind them out? Like, maybe.
But you can't even like this. It's not even Final Fantasy type of grinding that makes sense. It's really bad grinding if you had to do it. And I really do feel like you could get yourself stuck in a corner where you run out of healing items, you run out of money to buy more healing items, and I think the healing items are actually limited. You can't keep buying them over and over again. That you
No,
could probably
so
get stuck in the game.
you can, but the game's weird. It's like you're in the shop screen, you purchase it, it
Oh.
disappears, but as soon as you exit out and go back in, it's there again.
It's oh god, another
So-
okay. But the point is, grinding for the money is a chore, especially at the start of the game, because enemies, you can't just run around in circles waiting for enemies to respawn like in Final Fantasy. So, anyways, enough about that. Still worth playing, but I would probably hold off for most people till, fingers crossed, they'll rebalance stuff. What about you, Intigot? What?
Also playing a secret special spooky game that you originally said was not a Halloween game, which I 100% disagree with you on. And
I didn't say it wasn't a Halloween game. I said it's not the game I had in mind when I set out the challenge.
Well, we'll get there when we get there.
yeah,
But yeah.
you need to be clear on, right? So one thing that Swinny said that I needed to mention that I neglected to mention last week is that I made further amiibo purchases. So Animal Crossing had released their Series 5 amiibo cards. I like a Swinny in the video. Swinny's laughing his ass off.
I'm laughing so much because not only we like, it's not a big thing to bring up. Now you're having to talk about it a second time.
Yeah.
So it's even funnier to me.
No, it's just like it's just like another day, another week in the life of Intergod, buying hundreds of dollars worth of amiibo just nonchalantly.
Exactly. It's like, oh, that's not a big deal. I spent over $100 on amiibo cards this week.
But again, I defend myself because this is economically the smartest way to do it. So if you want to collect all the cards, I buy the box version of the cards. It has all of them in it. It's never not had all of them in it. And then I can sell all the duplicates.
So you're min-maxing amiibo collection.
Min-maxing card collection. And then in 30 years' time, when these amiibo cards for Animal Crossing in the metaverse, because everyone will live in the Animal Crossing metaverse, because that will be the metaverse that wins.
Oh
These
god.
amiibo cards are going to be worth like Pokemon cards are today. So who will be laughing then, Swinny? Who will be laughing then?
I'll
Me,
still be laughing.
in
I'll still be
reality.
laughing.
Who was laughing at me when I was talking about Bitcoin in 2010?
That's true. That's true.
Anyway, outside of that, definitely we're going to chat about the Nintendo Switch Online. So I've been playing a lot of that this week. I think I've played every single game on the 64 and a bunch of them on the Mega Drive, or weirdly enough, Genesis as I know it, even though it wasn't called that in Australia, but I never had a Mega Drive. Really keen to talk about Facebook, so that's the next story and the news. And then lastly is just Mastodon, the Atlanta-based Atlanta, Georgia-based metal band, released their new album, and it's awesome, and I really love it. And I had a Mastodon yellow shirt on originally that I bought at one of their shows that now my son's destroyed with chocolate from Halloween. So
I'll say it again. You need to get rid of that kid. Put him up for adoption.
I'll get that bastard back. What I'll do is I'll eat his candy tonight.
That shirt was the most non-metal shirt-looking shirt. It was great.
It's my
It's
favorite
totally
metal.
unmetal,
Well,
yeah.
it's one of my favorite metal shirts. Some of them I don't really fit them anymore, but some of them are quite disturbing the way they look, and I do like wearing them. I think I've got an FU shirt as well, don't I, Swinny?
I can't
Oh
remember.
no,
but...
I've
Is
got a
FU
shirt that
another
says
band,
"Happy
or-
Birthday F."
Yes.
And I used to wear that everywhere like a maniac.
My favorite metal shirt I used to have was a Children of Bodom shirt because I would wear it around, and I swear I had probably like 50 people over like when I used to wear it, like call out on the street, "Yeah, Children of Bodom, yeah!" The horns. And it's like no other band shirt ever did that, so it was just Children of Bodom.
Yeah, that's funny.
R.I.P. Alexis Leho.
I do find, because we both got a stack of metal shirts. I find that if I wear an Opeth shirt, I have the best conversations with people. But the Tool one is the worst. I actually retired my Tool shirts because I don't know, it just attracts the wrong crowd for some reason. So, but yeah, this Mastodon album's very good, Swinny. You should listen to it. It's very enjoyable.
I'll check it out.
It's a good listen. It's long, so if you like to smoke the peace pipe, it's probably a good idea to just chill and listen to it on whatever service you listen to stuff on. And how about you, Swinny, this week in gaming?
This week, just did my second playthrough of Echo Generation. It's a lot better when you
A
know
game
what
that
to do.
you think is what, a 6 out of 10?
It's I'd say probably 6 out of 10. Could be probably a 7 out of 10 with some improvements. But
Oh wait, can I explore this? Wait, so you're saying even if they balanced it, you'd still just give it like a 7?
yeah, but
It's 1 point extra?
I'm very like my scaling.
Yeah, true. You're not an IGN scale.
No, I'm very much like
It'd be like an 8 or a 9.
A 6 is a good game, a 7 is a great game, and everything beyond that it just scales up. So
Yep.
Everything beyond that is Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
yes, they're my favorite game of all time. No, we'll one day we'll need to talk about our favorite games of all time. I'm sure that's never been done on a podcast ever before.
No,
Never.
And I've never said Super Metroid like every single episode.
Extras. Yeah.
So I've also been playing some light Fairytale. Completed that. I'll be reviewing that later. Played my spooky game that we'll also talk about later. And the only other game I've really put some time into, even though it wasn't much this week, was a game called Underhero. So Underhero is not a new release. It came out about a year and a half ago, or the start of last year. And it's a platformer RPG that I purchased and just kind of sat on, just randomly thought, hey, I haven't played this yet. It's from a Spanish developer called Paper Castle Games. It's on PS4, PC, Switch, and Xbox One. And I'm honestly really, really enjoying it so far. It's honestly a great surprise. It's nice when you've got a game that you just bought, and because obviously I'm an RPG collector and achievement whore, but it turns out to be like a really great game. It's always a nice surprise. So I've only put about an hour into it, still kind of almost in the tutorial sections of it. And it's just got a really, really unique battle system. And I feel like I'm definitely repeating myself with this, so I'm hoping the other guys stay engaged with me here. But it's almost like a mix of Dark Souls and Punch-Out. So Dark Souls in the sense of it's turn-based, but it's all about stamina management, stamina bar. And it's like Punch-Out because you are dodging like high and low attacks based on enemy tells. So you've got a lizard that might wink twice, then you know they're going to do high attacks, so you're going to duck. And then the dodges help replenish your stamina meter. So it's all about that risk reward. Do I wait and dodge and to get more stamina and so on? You can also parry, which is a different thing, also replenish the stamina, but it's harder to time. But yeah, overall, it's really enjoying it so far. Very early. Looking forward to getting more into it next week. So I might just, this week I should say, and chat about it next week. So
when you mentioned the whole Dark Souls thing, there's two things that are like becoming very apparent. So you guys beat Dark Souls when it came out like 10 years ago. I beat it within this year, right? And I love it. It's like straight away one of my favorite games of all time, speaking of which. But I'm now like, so you know how I work. Like if I haven't played something, I'm not going to comment on it, right? But man, that game gets a lot of hate. And people using it as a reference point. Like people hate the whole... oh, it's a Dark Souls-like or a Souls-like. And I'm like, what? Like, I really struggle to understand the hate of using those concepts. It's like it communicates something very quickly and effectively, how that game sets up a certain, risk-reward dynamic that, challenges the player in a really cool way and hasn't really done before, like in that execution framework. And then also the game itself gets so much hate. It's like crazy to me. Like I watched, I'm a big fan of Last Stand Media, who used to be Colin's Last Stand. So Sacred Symbols, it's like the biggest PlayStation podcast in the world. And they did a whole event with 6 of them. And one of the guys said, like the question was the greatest video game of all time. One of the guys said Dark Souls, and he was voted like second last. I'm like, really? Like, and a game that came above it, Toy Story 3. On the Xbox 360.
Seriously?
That is a good game.
Yeah,
but come on.
That was the joke. It was almost like everyone thinks this is a shit game. But actually, if you look at that game and some of the stuff that Toy Story 3 did, it actually was like the first time that anyone did those things in a game.
Yeah.
So it's quite Avalanche as well. So
yeah.
But it's not better than Dark Souls.
I'll just clarify as well. Like it's very much just the stamina part. This is like a platform or turn-based RPG. But as you said, it's like it helps communicate the fact that like managing that stuff is exactly what obviously the combat's built around in Dark Souls. So.
Yeah, no. I just wonder if the whole Dark Souls hate's got anything to do with just people feeling like it's pretentious or too hard and it doesn't have like accessibility because it's too hard for some people to beat. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. All right, well, let's jump into the first news item. and it's all about the largest social media company in the world has formally changed its name from Facebook, which we knew it was going to. My joke was it was going to be called The, and instead, almost as Meta, it's changed its name to Meta.
How the hell did they get that name?
Oh, it's impressive, dude. It's almost like they have Facebook money.
Yeah. Weird, huh?
No, but they do.
Like,
they have
we would just come and
Meta.com.
buy. We would just come and buy the company that has the name Meta, just like to get the name Meta.
Is it intentional, by the way, when you have so much money that the symbol isn't symmetrical? Is that intentional?
Yes,
The lack of
definitely,
symmetry?
100%.
Why?
Because, well, people notice and it goes in their brain. So this was so we'll probably call out the gaming highlights from this week's Facebook Connect. And there's quite a lot of interesting stuff. And like, I really wanted to raise it. So the company has changed its name to Meta. So that's the head company. Facebook itself is still going to be called Facebook. And the whole point of the rebrand is really because Mark Zuckerberg wants to push the company aggressively into the metaverse space. So space that's currently occupied by Roblox, which has been down for 24 hours. Is that right, Swinny? At time of recording? And Fortnite. So Fortnite, you know, as everyone knows, many times recently they've had concerts. They've also hosted Star Wars trailers. They also hosted critical pieces of information about that Star Wars movie that was only in Fortnite, which I did not know until after watching that movie. And then I couldn't believe that that was actually something actually important to know before watching that movie. So the other thing was that Oculus as a brand, which is, I would say, the most recognized VR brand name, has been retired. So it's still on products currently, but it will be phased out. So by 2023, it would be no longer. And everything's going to be called Meta, related to Oculus. So you have the Meta Quest, Meta Horizon, Meta Home, everything like that. And it's all going to integrate into the Facebook universe and also Instagram as well, they've said. And as part of that rebrand, they did actually, to be fair to Facebook, which is not one of my favorite companies, did acknowledge the criticism that they had on the requirement to have a Facebook account, but they will require, I'm assuming, a Meta account. And they did say they want to authorize other accounts to be able to log into the metaverse and, you know, use Meta devices. But they did specifically say work accounts. So I'm not expecting, based on what they're saying, like a Gmail, like just, you know, a standard Gmail sort of account or something like that. It sounds like, you know, a work account. So, you know, someone who wants to meet virtually or telecom and things like that. The other things that they mentioned in the Facebook Connect was a new project that was heavily rumored, Project Cambria, which is a pro VR set in line with the original sort of Oculus sets that were out. So it has advanced eye tracking and facial expressions, leaning into areas where they've actually, you know, done fairly well recently. And finally, after the real huge critical success of Resident Evil 4 VR, which, you know, has had a complete VR overhaul of that game. You can play the entire game without a PC. It's just the Oculus Quest 2 to play it. And everyone that I've heard playing it absolutely loves it. So I'm really looking forward to playing it one day. Won't be right now. If you listened to the show last week, I could not procure the Oculus Quest 2 for this show. So that will be down the track. I'm almost thinking PSVR, but anyway, I'll park that. That they had a really cool announcement, actually, that GTA San Andreas is going to be built and have an overhaul very similar to Resident Evil 4 VR, and be released in the Meta Quest 2, I'm guessing, because it sounds like it's a little bit far away still. So yeah, like, I think there's a lot of decent announcements. I'm not a huge fan of Meta or Facebook as a company. Oculus is something I would actually have bought if it was its own company or owned by a company that I can, you know, get behind a little bit.
Trust.
But yeah, like Swinny, like you're the one of us. Have you even used one of these VR devices?
I've never used VR in my life.
Yeah,
outside of the VR we talked about
Yeah,
in
way
our
back on the show,
local
yeah.
pool joint 10, 15 years ago or whatever.
I think we've mentioned this story once before, but like there was a pool joint we always used to go to, and like they obviously had invested like tens of thousands of dollars in this like 90s VR set and experience, and they never wanted to move it, and it was so expensive. It was like 25 Australian dollars or something from memory to use it, and I don't think we ever saw anyone use it from memory.
No, that they were ahead of their time. That was the real metaverse. That was
Yeah.
the fun city metaverse.
That's
Too early.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
but
Yeah,
like,
things have improved a little bit, Swinny, since then.
yeah, but I guess that's the asking. No, yet to use VR. Obviously, I'm super keen to try it at some point. I've definitely had my eye on getting one now that I've got more space to use that stuff, especially ones that require a bit more like yes. So for listeners, Mike just held up an Oculus. Was that a Quest 2?
Quest
I'm
2, yeah.
advertising at a Quest 2.
Quest
yes.
2. So, but yeah, in terms of this news, look, it's Facebook. Everything they do has just an air of just like, just insincerity. So I love where this technology is going. I think it's going to open up a lot of great avenues around just the idea of having virtual spaces. I think is cool. I know it's not brand new, but I like that idea. But just I mentioned it when we were recording before. Just Mark Zuckerberg is one of the most like just you just look at him and I just don't trust a single word he says. I just really don't.
That was the most artificial fake presentation I've seen in a long time. Everything about it, ironically, obviously, because it's all about VR, just felt so fake and scripted. And oh god, I was rolling my eyes the whole time.
It is like I would, if people are keen on this stuff and interested, I would recommend people go back and watch the Facebook Connect stream, because it is interesting. Like, it's funny and there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. And I don't disagree with you, Mike. It's very weird. And just like when he's looking at his avatar, his virtual avatar and everything, and then he mirrors himself, and it's just, the joke about the robot, like there's a robot avatar and he's like, oh, I thought I'd be the robot. I'm like, there's no way he would have come up with that, or like he maybe even understood why that's funny. Like, potentially he's a strange guy.
The presentation feels like a parody. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
It's so uncanny. But what the idea is, like a really sound and cool. And obviously that's the direction they're going with to get away from traditional social media. They're kind of moving to that as well. But just like we went into depth when we were talking before, just the privacy nature of it. Like, this is just Facebook are one of the worst offenders in the past of this stuff.
Yeah.
And this, I don't have a Facebook account. I don't have an Instagram account. Like, I wouldn't trust them at all with my information. So,
well, it's also sorry, Antigone. I think ultimately it's the pinnacle of the quote that if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And I think this is taking it a whole new level, where what they're trying to do is get you into this virtual world where they can suck every single thing out of you that they possibly can, because they'll know everything about you. They'll suck everything out of you that they possibly can. And this is why I think, look, it's an interesting innovation, and I think it's going to succeed because a lot of people will fall for this. And I want to go through my philosophical rant that I had before about the fact that people unfortunately will be happy to live in this virtual world because for a lot of people the real world sucks. I like the real world, as shit as it is, and a lot of times as hard as it is in a lot of cases. I love the real world.
Specifically, you said you love reality.
Yeah,
I love reality. I do. I love going in and out of virtual reality here and there just to dabble with it and experience games, and whether that's in an actual VR world or just let's say a 2D plane of a monitor. Don't get me wrong. I grew up experiencing all these different things, but I think there's a limit to how much I'm willing to personally, and I think this goes for a lot of people, how much they're willing to give up their real world to try to live in this thing. And first and foremost, to me, the creepiest thing ultimately is that Facebook are about profits and they're about making money in the end. And this whole thing about connecting people is just, yeah, sure, okay, yes. But really, it's a means to an end. And ultimately, it's about what can they do with the information that they get on you. And if you're going to spend most of your time in the virtual world, you're going to use virtual currency to do those things. You're going to get paid in the real world, let's call it that, for stuff that you do. And a bunch of your money is going to go into this thing so you can continuously do stuff in the virtual world. To me, that's just weird. It's messed up, man. It really is. When we get to a world, it's such a dystopian idea, especially coming from a company like Facebook to do that. It's nuts. And just one thing that I think is quite cool though about something like the Project Cambria that I don't think we covered just yet is that he did mention in the Facebook Connect stream that it's supposed to be sort of the latest tech that they're putting into this. So it's going to be quite a premium device until they can get those features to the standard, well, I can't call it Oculus anymore, the standard Quest products. So I think that's going to be interesting. It's going to be cool to see how this, because it's a huge company with a lot of money behind them, will evolve VR as a piece of technology. I just think ultimately for me, it's becoming really dystopian. This whole thing that I watched felt like an episode of Black Mirror. It really did. Like you could take this entire thing, label it as a Black Mirror episode, and I'd be like, yeah, that's a good episode. I like that.
We haven't spoken about the most important piece of news that came out of this Facebook Connect, though. Just posted an image in our chat. Sorry, a link to an image that Mark Zuckerberg was using a bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce as a door stopper. Sorry, a book
What?
thing, whatever you call them. It's the best thing ever. It's like
That is pretty cool, actually.
Everything is so manufactured in a certain way that somebody must have placed it there.
Of
course,
sure.
of course.
But it's like, why would you put that on a shelf?
Next to a pic of Betsy, his
Maybe as
non-existent
part
dog.
of Cambria, you can taste things, you know? So that's
Taste
going to
some
be...
Sweet Baby Ray's honey barbecue sauce.
No, that would be interesting.
Yeah, look, like Mike, I get what you're saying. I think the scary thing is Facebook is, you know, what is there? Like 10 companies in the world, like the Tencents of the world, Apple, Google. Like there's very few companies that if they go full on in this space can only win. Like everyone else, like basically you've got 10 players in the entire world that could only potentially win, right? And right now, from a metaverse perspective, you've only, like honestly, Roblox and Fortnite are the only, you know, and more so Epic with Fortnite, like they're, you know, big on the metaverse and pushing that angle. But I mean, they're never going to be able to compete with Facebook. Facebook has got like the most ridiculously deep pockets. And it does worry me because I think the whole metaverse space, you know, I'm not like, you know, I love learning about new tech. You know, I was huge on Bitcoin, you know, right when it first started. You know, I'm not that big on like things like NFTs and all these other kind of things that are bubbling up. But the whole metaverse idea, I genuinely think that could be like as revolutionary as the internet. And when you're saying about that, it's like, I totally could imagine people getting jobs in the metaverse, getting paid in that world's currency, and then you're like so like locked in then, right? Yeah. And you know, I can see this sort of economic loop that it creates. And you know, it like I think the pandemic has proven that people can stay at home and work and do things. So it's kind of like as a model, they've almost like had real evidence to show this can work, right? So for me, it's like I feel like the whole metaverse thing is an inevitability. And, you know, the whole VR thing, the way they do it, it's not going to work. There's got to be some huge advance in that space. But, man, I do not want Facebook to be the winner. Like, the idea that Zuckerberg is the president of the metaverse is like I'd be like one of those people like, how do we blow up this metaverse?
Zuckerberg will be the Lord British of the metaverse.
Correct. Yeah.
And someone will hack it and then take him down.
All right, let's not put violent threats out there because I know what happened to Lord British in that game.
Yeah.
So let's chill on that, Sweeney. All right, well, I think we've done that topic. But like, look, to be fair, like a lot of cool announcements. I hope it propels and pushes other players to do more in this space. I'm super keen to see what Sony does with PSVR 2 next year, which almost certainly will be a holiday device for next year. So really looking forward to that. Let's get into the next story. PlayStation State of Play was this week. It was about 20 minutes. Mike and I actually did live stream that. So if you jump on Twitch and Facebook, you can still see the playbacks of those streams. You know, I think we felt it was like, you know, fairly decent, but it was funny watching it. I think both of us thought this is more of a Sweeney stream. So maybe I'll hand over to you, Sweeney, to talk about some of the things you're keen about.
Sure, yeah. And I didn't do the live reaction because it was just before like a work day. And I'm just like, you know what, if you guys want to do it, you can do it. And I'm kind of glad I didn't because I didn't think it was a great presentation either. But as you said, there was two specific games that super piqued my interest that, that you guys are probably like, it's just not probably your jam at the time as well. But the first being what they opened with, which was a huge surprise. So was Deathverse Let It Die. For anyone who doesn't know, Deathverse was a game that came out in 2016. It was developed by Grasshopper, so that's Suda51 Studio and Gung Ho, and it came out on PS4 and later on PC. And it was a free-to-play action roguelike, basically, that had like permadeath and asynchronous multiplayer. It was really, really cool ideas. Bit of a mixed reception when it came out, but there were some people that actually really, really liked the game. And I remember at the time being kind of very jealous of the people that had, the ability to play it, because it just seemed like right up my alley. I love Suda51's games. It had Souls-like combat, apparently, because I never got a chance to try it myself. But it was a game that kind of had a little bit of a buzz at the time, and then kind of just went and disappeared. And it was free to play, and I think they had some very bad microtransaction practices in there, so that kind of didn't help the game as well. But it stayed around. Gung Ho, the online entertainment, they're the ones kind of supported it. It was still getting updates. It was up to like season 17 and stuff as recently. And they announced a new game in that series. Now, it's not so much a sequel as it is kind of like a new battle royale style game in the same universe basis. So it takes place a couple of hundred years after that first game. And it's not being developed by Grasshopper manufacturer this time. So no Suda51. It's being developed by Gung Ho and Super Trick Games. I think Super Trick Games were also involved in the first one. So this is more like a PvPvE. So there's definitely enemies in there, and it's also free to play as well. But I'm actually super interested in this game because it just has the kind of the tone that I like. The combat looks really, really cool. Apparently there's invincible like CPU hunters that can invade the match and hunt people down. And I always loved that idea. That was very much a Dark Souls pre-release kind of funny thing where they would have invincible invaders come in to kill people and stuff. But so this is coming in Q2 next year. To PS4 and PS5, and now that I have a PS5, I can actually play it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Maybe I'll join you.
I have to say, I'm more than happy to jump on and maybe stream it or something like that. But I do find with Suda51, man, that like the games are so divisive. Like people either are on board or just like way not on board. And with the trailer, I was a bit like, "What? Like, what is this game? This is like." You saw our reaction to it. I was just like, "Oh, I don't understand this game."
As soon as I saw the game, and I'm like, "This," I knew what it was, but but I didn't think that was a multiplayer game, and I'm like, it was weird. But I understand. Like, I'm actually not I'm not a big fan of the No More Heroes series, which is the series that he's kind of most famous for now. But I'm a huge fan of like Killer 7 and Shadows of the Damned and stuff like that. So I definitely love Suda's work. But the other game, which was also a huge surprise, was the next Star Ocean. So Star Ocean: The Divine Force. So this is the sixth mainline game in the series, which is developed by Tri-Ace and published by Square Enix. So for anyone that doesn't know Tri-Ace, they're most famous for the Valkyrie Profile games, Resonance of Fate, which is a game I absolutely love. I talked about that in our most underrated games feature quite a few episodes ago, and Final Fantasy 13-2, as well as Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13. So they're very well regarded RPG developers, and actually interestingly, they formed as an offshoot studio from key stuff that worked on Tales of Phantasia, the very first Tales game. So basically, Tales of Phantasia game came out in the SNES, then some key studio members left and formed Tri-Ace, and then they created the first Star Ocean game. That's why the game Tales and Star Ocean's always kind of had a linked relationship, especially in the battle systems. But anyway, this is the first game since the 2016 game, which was the fifth in the series, which was Integrity and Faithlessness, which was only on the PS4. I think it might have got a PS3 report in Japan. I never played that game, but I know that game was the reception to that was incredibly divided. a lot of people thought that game had killed the series because not only did it not go well, I think financially, from what I heard, its critical reception was pretty poor. So a lot of people were super surprised to see this announcement, but it's actually the 25th anniversary of the series, so it kind of makes sense if they were going to announce it. And obviously they've been working on it for a while because it's coming next year. So I still, the only Star Ocean game I've ever played was number 4, The Last Hope. But when I say I played that, I put probably about 400 hours into that game.
Whoa, dude.
I
Damn.
still have PTSD because I haven't completed it. It's like my white whale in achievements.
Oh no.
It is my white whale. Like I still like. It's funny when I transferred all my save files from one Xbox 360 to another. I didn't transfer that one just in case. No, initially just in case something went wrong because I'm like, I have to preserve this save file.
Wow.
But anyway, I don't think I'll ever actually end up completing that game. But I'm looking forward to trying this. It's coming out essentially on all the platforms except Switch next year. So
I must have been like, when we were watching it, I was a bit like, oh, what is this game? Blah, blah, blah. And then when it was Star Ocean, I was like, oh, wow, Star Ocean. That's kind of cool.
it's when I saw it, like that's I jumped randomly in the stream you guys were watching. That's what I jumped. That's where I jumped in. And straight away, I'm like, this is bloody Star Ocean because it's the same character designer and it's the same ugly ass characters. I've never liked the Star Ocean designs.
May I suggest the next time we do a PlayStation stream, let's get the guy who only just got a PlayStation 5 to do it because he knows a shit ton more about the platform than we do.
would. It's the fact that it was literally like 8 a.m. on a work day. Like, you know, I should.
7:45.
But we should all say we're working remotely, right?
Yeah. And we should all say that
I-
you
I
probably only
work-
work
I-
out
I
half
had
the
an
day.
8.
Okay.
I had an 8:30 meeting.
Okay.
I had an 8:30 meeting. Like I had an overrun of 10 minutes to finish the stream and get to work.
So
Bloody 8:30 meetings.
we obviously aren't doxing ourselves or disclosing, you know, the companies that we work for and everything like that. But you guys know where I work, right? Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know what meeting I had at 9 a.m. and who it was with? The CEO.
Oh god.
And it's like I work at a pretty big company, like fairly.
Well,
big
you're
company.
willing to make that sacrifice. I'm willing to take
No, like
to be sensible sometimes.
I need to defend myself. I do my work well regarded and I get stuff done and you know, that's my time. Like, and we finished at 8:30, bang. Like I was
I
working.
can't believe you
Exactly.
guys are giving
Straight
me
into
shit
it.
for not joining that
We're not
stream.
giving you shit.
He
I'm
gave
the
you shit. He gave you
and
shit.
when I called out to you guys, oh, are there any games you guys want to cover? You all said no.
No, I'm giving myself shit for the fact that you would have been way better at covering that than I
Fair
would
enough,
ever have
fair
been.
enough.
So,
I'll
yeah.
say though, I've got to be careful with what I say because I do not want to do the next big stream that I can think of, which is the Xbox reveal stream, which is like in a few
Wait,
weeks
sweaty
because
for
it's at
that.
4 a.m. in the morning, our time.
I'll be doing that one.
Are you actually going to do that?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what
I
they
would
say.
do it.
Maybe I'll wake up.
4 a.m. Depends what.
It's the
which day of
anniversary.
the week,
It's
but
the
yeah.
anniversary stream, so
The 20th anniversary, right?
we will have to We'll have to check what they kind of say about it because it might say about it because who knows, it might not really be what we're wanting. So
And I guess
see.
that gets on to my like wrap of the sort of PlayStation State of Play. I feel like with Nintendo, even when people shit on it and go, oh, that was a terrible direct, you know, I think we're usually like, oh, it was pretty decent. There was some cool stuff that they announced. I do find that with Microsoft and PlayStation, they can really just put these things out there and it's like, why did they do that? Like this State of Play, I'm a bit like, meh, why? Like surely they got some big stuff coming up. Like they could wait a little bit longer.
But yeah, look, I completely understand that a lot of people are like, okay, that was pointless for me, right? That's 100%. That's whatever. But also, like, everyone's a victim of their own making with this, right? If a company says, oh, we want to hold a little presentation, it's only going to focus on third party, right? You've got to be realistic about what people are what they're going to show there. Sure, they didn't show Final Fantasy 16, which is what people were wanting, right? So that sucks, but it's not like a company is going to market. They're going to want to push this stuff, right? It's up to us to keep our expectations in check, I think. They're not going out there saying stuff that they don't deliver. So
I'm not sure if I agree with your point there because I think with marketing, you need to manage people's expectations, right? And if you put something out, I think when people talk about Nintendo, it's completely unreasonable. Like I think Nintendo Like they almost always have something decent to talk about or say, and it might just be you don't like that series, but it's a fairly big series. Like a lot of the times when they're talking about stuff, you know, people shit on it, and it's Animal Crossing. I'm like, freaking Animal Crossing is massive, 35 million sales, right? For me, it was just like, and you know, I have very low expectations on these things. I was even saying, I don't think there's anything that's going to be announced, but we'll just watch it anyway and see how it goes, right? It's just, I still like, I'm sticking to the point that I don't really understand why they did it, given that they're not doing it all the time. And it is a massive spotlight when they go, we've got a state of play. People are going to tune in and watch it and then go, I don't know, like Among Us clone, like it's just a bit weird and disjointed. Like it feels like give it another month or two, add one or two more games in, and it would have been a lot better. So, but yeah, anyway. All right, let's go down to our final news item. So this week marked the 25th birthday of the legendary Tomb Raider series. To celebrate the occasion, Crystal Dynamics revealed exclusive footage of a planned survival horror reboot called Tomb Raider Ascension. So, Swinny, you are the big Tomb Raider fan among us.
I certainly am, and I'm the person that also mans a run sheet. So this is a news story this week.
God damn it.
The fact that it's Tomb Raider's 25th anniversary is not a brand new thing. They announced a while back, and they've been running stuff over the last few months to celebrate it. But this week was the birthday, was the anniversary of the first game's release on the Saturn. A lot of people think it was a PC and PlayStation game, and at launch it was actually launched first on the Saturn.
Can I say I'm literally googling this because I'm like, Saturn? Are you sure, Swinny?
Yeah, and has since seen 19 entries in the series. So obviously not all of them are considered like mainline games, but obviously it's a massive series, 25 years. And to celebrate, they announced Switch ports of Guardian Light and Temple of Osiris, which are the top-down or kind of isometric action co-op games, which are really, really cool. A lot of people were hoping for news of the next Tomb Raider game. Obviously, they didn't give that, but there are job listings that Crystal Dynamics have up that kind of almost hints that they're working on the next title. They didn't actually make the last Tomb Raider game. They made the Tomb Raider reboot and of the last trilogy, Tomb Raider reboot and Rise of. It was actually, I think, Eidos Montreal. It was definitely one of the other studios that made Rise of Tomb Raider. But yeah, so they've basically, and the most important news, they finally launched the Tomb Raider cookbook and travel guide.
Fantastic.
So
just what I was after.
They announced that a while back, but they finally released it. And I actually checked it out on Amazon. I'm like, this would be an interesting trinket to own, but it led me to the fact that I didn't know there existed an Elder Scrolls cookbook that came out 2 years ago, and you can even listen to the audio version of it on Amazon. I'm like, an audio version of the Elder Scrolls cookbook is the most like insane thing I've ever heard. But they've actually, like, this week they've also had some really, really cool little videos with a lot of the people involved with Tomb Raider over the years. So whether or not they were the voice actresses, the directors of some of the movies and the writers of the games, and even like a lot of the promotional models that were famous at the time, like anyone that's kind of been Lara outside of, I guess, Angelina Jolie and I think Alicia Vikander, I forget her name, but that played Lara in the last Tomb Raider movie. Outside of them, like, it was really, really cool to see all these people be involved in in the past of the series. But the most interesting thing that came out was Crystal Dynamics dropping Tomb Raider Ascension footage, which was basically the original direction they were wanting to take the reboot in 2013, or they were, I guess, prototyping. So it's very much, a lot of the footage shows that it was a survival horror game, basically. And it's kind of leaning further into the direction. It's not the first time that they've gone that way, but the last, I guess, piece of content that they'd released was DLC for Tomb Raider Underworld before the reboot, and that was very much leaning in this supernatural horror element. So you can see where they kind of really work on that and then figure, hey, we could make this a whole game. Obviously, they didn't go in that direction, but they still, a lot of the elements did carry over, you know, the usage of using a torch to light up the areas he's walking through caves. That's like, you know, like very central to the reboot in that sense of like fear and jump scares and stuff. But yeah, it's just for a company to do this, to show off like prototype footage of a game that never
Really
came out,
cool.
this stuff usually comes out, but it comes out years after the fact by someone that worked on it that just wants their work shown, not in the middle of from the studio themselves to celebrate it. Like, God, I'd love Nintendo to do this stuff, you know. Like, that'd be so cool. I know. We need a Giga Leak to see that stuff. But
just on that, Svenny, before you move on, like, I totally agree with you. Like, I would love if companies, especially because this was, 8 years ago, right, when they were going to reboot it in this direction, ballpark. There's plenty of examples, I'm sure, with Naughty Dog and, like Rockstar and Activision, like all these companies that they've thought, we'll take it one direction or another. I feel like that's awesome marketing,
Yeah.
Like it just gets people talking about your series and honestly, I can't think of anyone who's done this. Like actively a developer has gone, hey, look at this idea that we had, like, and we never went forward with it. Like, what do you think of it?
Like, you get really good feedback from people and just gauge whether people are interested in taking the series in that direction. This looks really cool.
No,
I love a little horror.
Yeah, gouge their eyes out.
Yes. So if
Stop
anyone's
making fun of my
interested
accent.
if anyone's
I'm not sure if
interested
that's an accent. That's just pronunciation.
My pronunciation, whatever.
if anyone's interested in hearing more about Tomb Raider prototypes, back on
please.
our episode 26, we actually talked about Core Design's prototype for a Tomb Raider 1 remake that actually got leaked and was playable. So you can go and check that out, and we'll put the link in our description. But the last thing I wanted to say was, as mentioned before, I'm a huge fan of the Tomb Raider series, specifically the original games and the Legend trilogy, which was when Crystal Dynamics came in. I've finally kind of come to grips with the fact that the reboot wasn't the direction that I wanted the series to go in, even though it was the first reboot game was a very good game. And kind of now I'm like, you know what? I need to jump into those other sequels. I got to get over the fact that the series changed, and I just, I still love that style of game. So yeah, happy
And they're good
birthday,
games.
Tomb Raider.
Just off the top of your head, it's got to be the #1 video game series with a female protagonist as the main protagonist, and always the main protagonist.
I
Right?
mean, I believe so.
I mean, there
she-
wouldn't even be a competition, right? with it?
Metroid?
Yeah, I believe she also holds the.
Metroid Dread's already outsold every single Metroid game and probably is on track to outsell all of them combined at this rate.
Yeah.
But what are we judging it by?
Oh no, but you got
Tomb
for
Raider has
me,
definitely sold more than Metroid.
Sales?
Dude,
Tomb Raider's definitely
Okay,
sold more.
fine.
honestly, like, I've got to play through Metroid Prime. Metroid might be my favorite series, right? And that's against Mario and Zelda and stuff like that, right? I would not put Metroid ahead of Tomb Raider in terms of, if I say what's the biggest, most influential.
Yeah, probably
know,
right. Yeah, probably
I
is the biggest.
believe Lara Croft also holds the Guinness World Record for the most amount of magazine covers, more than any supermodel or anything as
We're going
well.
to say
So.
something else there.
That's fascinating that it's
Most
more than any
triangular
supermodel and stuff. Wow.
polygons.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's really,
Fascinating.
really cool. I did like Tomb Raider back in the day and haven't played any of the recent ones, even though I know Swinny's been a big proponent for me to jump back in. So, are they on Game Pass?
Good games.
I always want to ask that question.
I don't think any are currently on Game Pass.
I don't
but,
think
yeah.
so. They usually, because they're obviously, we talked about this before. They released the 3-pack, and even that wasn't special.
That's true. They
So
go
they
on
go
sale
on special
all
a lot.
the time.
Yeah, all
You
the
can get it for
freaking
like
time.
$5 normally, like almost
Yeah,
any version
so-
of it. Yeah. Cool. All right, well, that wraps us up for the news this week. But as part of the wrap up, we have a little segment we call the Minute Mic. So the idea is that there's lots of news that happened during the week. We used to talk about it. If you go back to episode 1, all of these items we would talk about, and the show would be like 3 hours or 4 hours long. So we've cut
they
that.
Each segment would be 2 minutes long max.
Yeah. And, there's stuff that we're passionate about, but we don't really have anything to add. It's like cool news. Awesome. Like, we're looking forward to it, or we'll wait until it comes out, or we'll wait till some rumors that we're almost 100% certain will, come to fruition. So we've come up with this Minute Mic idea. The intro to the segment is about 2 or 3 minutes long, but Mike has 1 minute. We will time it. He starts it. Then I press the button for the timer. So,
let's
it's at
go.
his leisure. And there's a lot of words, and let's see if he can get it all in. If he can't, he has to streak at PAX Australia next year.
So for the sake of everyone, I hope I can get this.
Yeah. And it's when he judges whether he succeeded or failed. And he's a very lenient judge. by the way.
He is, because I watched.
I think you
last
failed last
week's,
week.
and I feel like it might have just failed. But
Well, there's another French name in this one, so let's see how you
oh
go.
god,
He did the name really well last time.
He's
It was just-
looking. He's looking.
He
he's
added
looking.
extra crap to it for no reason and paused at certain points. But anyway,
no,
I'm waiting
this one
for
I
you,
have to go through.
Mike.
Okay, ready? Okay. Niantic's Pikmin Bloom has launched in some regions, including Australia and the US. 343 have shown the campaign for Halo Infinite for the first time since last year. A demo of Metroid Dread is now available on the Nintendo eShop. Returnal's latest update has added a suspense cycle feature and photo mode. Doom Eternal has added a new Horde mode and its free 6.66 update. According to reputable leaks, Warner Bros. Is working on a crossover platform fighter. Ubisoft head Yves Guillemot has confirmed Assassin's Creed Infinity will not be free to play. Sony has launched a new label, PlayStation PC, for its line of PC ports. PUBG, publisher Crafton Inc. has acquired Subnautica developer Unknown Worlds. Blizzard has announced that it will pause plans for BlizzCon next year to reimagine the event. Vicarious Visions will be renamed after its recent amalgamation into Blizzard. Nintendo are closing down the California and Toronto offices. GoldenEye 007 on Nintendo 64 has finally been unbanned in Germany after 24 years. And finally, Sir Trevor McDonald is the new games master for the upcoming show reboot.
Oh,
Too
nice
easy this
work.
week. Too easy, boys.
How many words was that, Swinny?
180, exact same as last
180.
week.
But not as many French names. Like is it Yves Guillemot?
Yves.
Guillemot?
Eves.
Yves? How do you
I
pronounce
believe.
surname?
Yves Guillemot.
Guillemot?
Guillemot.
Gilmore one though.
Man, I don't know. Like,
You did well though.
You did
You did
amazing.
well.
I know, thanks. It's just French. I love the French language to bits. My mum speaks it. Like a quarter of my family speaks it. But man, it's so many unnecessary letters in that language. Like Renault. How does an O become A-U-L-T? Or how does A-U-L-T become an O?
So
you want to make this a feature, Mike?
this is like
What grinds my language gears?
this is a good example. So this is like absolutely live breaking news, not big news, like, but it just got released like a few minutes ago that with the Lego sets, like the Super Mario series, that they're doing 3 Luigi Mansion sets. So I just posted it in the chat.
I
with
thought
guys.
you were like
That is breaking
joking for a
news.
second.
No, that just got announced. But that's a good example of Minute Mike news.
they're the
Yeah, I think it's worth
kitty
talking about it
ones.
now.
But they do have the little like Luigi vacuum thing for Luigi's Mansion thing, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
but I want like
I agree,
make
I
an
agree.
actual
We're all
full
the same.
mansion.
Yeah,
That's
I
like
want a proper mansion set.
massive
yeah.
amount of pieces. And stuff.
I know, but like we're all on the same page on that. But that's a good example of Minute Mike news.
So literally last minute Mike news.
Breaking
yeah.
news.
Yeah,
Thanks,
exactly.
Books.
Minute second. Yeah, no, well done, Mike. Like people need to Google what's the average speaking speed, and then they'll see you're speaking at a rate that's like, I think it's like 40 to 50% faster than
Really?
a fast
Damn,
speaker
okay.
is speaking.
We happy with 180?
Being
We
slightly
happy with
Yeah,
dyslexic.
180 is perfect.
Okay, cool.
180 is
that's-
pretty good, yeah.
that's a
'Cause
fair
it varies.
balance. Like,
yeah,
you
it
can
is because
stuff
it varies
up.
in difficulty.
Yeah, agree. All right, that's one of my favorite segments. All right, well let's jump into the features. So this week I have taken one for the team and upgraded, and I guess Mike has access to this. I don't know if he realizes, upgraded my Switch Online membership with the new expansion pack, and I have not really been following too much of the news until the last couple of days on it, but I've been playing it myself, just getting a feel for it. And wow, the internet is not very happy, and it's very few people who are saying it's good. So, like, firstly, I'll just double check because I don't know. Mike, have you played any of it or?
No, I have not. I didn't even realize I had access to it. So thank you.
Yeah, so you're on my family plan because we're in the same family, obviously, in internet.
Yeah, we're homies.
So you have access to it, and I should say I got access to it because my wife was going to get the Animal Crossing DLC. So it's like
Makes sense.
I was like, oh, there's kind of no point not getting it in a way. So, Swinny, do you have access to it?
No, so I said when we talked about it last time, it's like I'm in no rush to go to get this, and I'm glad I didn't right away. So.
Yeah. So okay, I've played all of the Nintendo 64 games and a whole bunch of the Mega Drive Genesis games. Start with the good. So the Genesis Mega Drive games, awesome, amazing. The emulation is awesome. I don't know if people have seen the Sega collection that previously had gone up. There was a lot of issues with the emulation on that. This was super tight. like really good. Like actually, like it made me go through and play a whole bunch of Castlevania Bloodlines, and I'm like, damn, this game's good. Sonic 2 is probably my favorite Sonic game. I'm not a huge fan of Sonic, but that is a really good game. And there's a whole bunch of other really awesome games that are on the Mega Drive collection. As I said, the emulation's awesome. It has rewind features, all the stuff that you see with the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo, like awesome edition. So like that's starting with the good. And now going on to the 64 emulation. Wow. Like honestly, it was shocking to me how bad this was. Like the way that I can just quickly summarize it is this was exactly like what Sony did with the PlayStation Classic. Like Nintendo released the SNES Mini, the NES Mini, really well executed, awesome, great emulation, not perfect but great. And then the PlayStation Classic came out and it was a piece of shit. Like it didn't work properly. Like the games were like 50 hertz in, you know, even in America, like they got the PAL versions of the games.
Wow.
People were just baffled by it. And they've done the same thing, Nintendo. Like I don't understand what they've done here. Like it's bizarre. So for me, and as I said, I hadn't really heard anything about it. I was just like, I'm just going to play it. And I don't really tell you guys, but I play Mario 64 like maybe once every other week, right? Because my son always wants me to play it, so we play it. So I'm actually super familiar with the All-Stars collection version of it. And I think that's a really good version of Mario 64. And I was defending the All-Stars, the 3D All-Stars collection, because I'm like, they've built a platform now. Like it uses an emulator. They've got Lua scripts to inject things in so they can, you know, modify the games really quickly, change the button mapping, all this kind of stuff, right? People have shown that this emulator in this Nintendo Switch Online, the N64 version, is the same fundamental emulator. But as soon as I started playing Mario 64, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's like, you know, and because, you know, I play that game so much, I'm like, damn, this game's like freaking laggy or something. Or like, it just doesn't feel right. Like I'm jumping and it's not like quite as snappy and everything.
Can I ask, sorry, how are you playing this on using the 64 controller or using the regular controls?
I didn't get the 64 controller. So like I'm talking about like the 3D All-Stars collection, Mario 64, and then like the Mario 64 and the N64, and then handheld and wireless, like testing both. But I normally play handheld, which actually always has the least amount of lag because at least the amount of screen lag and then also controller lag because they're directly connected to the Switch. So I was like, fuck, okay, that's like weird. And then I started playing Ocarina of Time and I'm like, damn, this is because I've got the 3DS version of that, which is great. I mean, the biggest downside to it is like it's on a 3DS, which is hard to go back to now because of the Switch. But it's still a great version of that game. And, you know, playing the 64 version, I'm like, oh my God, this is like so sluggish. And then even like Mario Kart 64, I'm like, it doesn't quite feel like, you know, I don't know, like that one, to be fair, I've only really played it on CRTs and CRTs are just so far superior. And I still play CRTs. So, you know, I know that there's lag on every game, but that one felt a bit off. But this is where I started to hear what other people were talking about it. And that one was shocking to me because, you know, I'm a huge Mario Kart fan. I like pretty much like 100% all the games, right? So I'll go through, get all the cups, all gold cups, everything perfect, you know, then I'll go through the time trials and like make sure I beat all the ghosts and the developer ghosts if the game has it. And it was like shocking to see that. And this is just like in line with what they're doing, that you can't even play the recorded ghost of this version. Like they haven't coded it in to the emulator.
I could be wrong. I heard that if you play a certain region, maybe Japan, it works. But then, like, who's gonna do that, right?
Yeah.
But so it's just I've heard something along those lines. I could be wrong, but it's like weird that something exists for that to work without the controller pack. But it doesn't work in like the region that obviously the majority of people we're hearing from are going to be playing it in, you know?
Yeah, and look, there's, you know, I'm definitely on the more Nintendo shill side of Nintendo criticism for everyone to understand. You know, for instance, with, you know, Mario 64, the Japanese version has rumble. The Western versions, the English versions don't. But to me, that's different because that's consistent because when they were released, we never had a Rumble version of that game. They actually did a revision of Mario 64 in Japan after the Rumble pack was released, and it included Rumble. So I'm like, I get that. That's a lot of work to bring that back in. That's not just a copy and paste like I think some people think it is, right? But it's just these things of like, why is that missing? And I know there's a lot of issues with, I didn't get through it because it felt so bad, Ocarina of Time. And I love that game so dearly. I didn't want to ruin the image of it in my mind. But, you know, seeing other people play it through and they're showing like it's missing the fog so you can see the Deku tree straight away. And it's just like artistic elements are completely botched in a way that's just, for me, completely unacceptable. And I just don't understand what the hell is going wrong with this. This is
and
like
charge so much money for
this
it.
is so bad that I'm just like they actually literally need to fix this. Like this will be ridiculous if they leave it like this.
The biggest thing for me that I've seen, obviously I haven't experienced it myself, but I was shocked when it showed what the controller mapping is.
Oh fuck me, the controller mapping.
Why?
And
Well,
you-
I didn't see that. What?
I don't know, Indigo, if there's a way for you to bring up an image of it at all. I know it's on the fly.
I'll try to do it, but basically, Mike. So like the 64, my 64 controller is just out of reach, like the original one. But you know, the 64 controller is weird because you know they don't have. It's too dark, right? They
Yeah, I know
don't.
what you mean.
They don't have like
Middle.
an analog stick. They have the 4 buttons, which is like the precursor of an analog stick almost. But then they're stuck in this situation where they've got like 2 buttons and then they've got another 2 face buttons, but they don't have an extra 2. And they've mapped it in the fucking weirdest way. And it's like, okay, I don't know why you've mapped it to like, it's like C down and C left. But then the fact that you cannot remap the buttons. You can't remap the buttons. It's like, look, why? Why can't I remap the buttons?
And it's actually a major issue for some games because it's remapped.
Oh, yeah, it is.
In a way that just don't work well.
Yeah, and I experienced that. I experienced that because I was playing. It was one of the games I'm not as familiar with, Winback or something. And I had to friggin' like hold it in the craziest way. I'll bring it up on the screen in a second.
I've just posted a link if you want to.
Yeah, I'll bring it up now. But I was holding it in the most weird way, and I'm like, is this? Like,
Oh, wow,
Did they try this? Did they actually play this? Like,
But it's
like,
also
how's this possible?
like the fact that you have to hold ZR and then use the face buttons to use the full C, like 4 C buttons. Now, maybe there's a technical reason for this, but couldn't they just do what they did for Mario 64 on the All-Stars and just map the C buttons to the right analog stick?
No, they are mapped to that.
Oh, so it's just the fact this screenshot's only showing, it doesn't show that?
No, this screenshot shows it. So see the right analog stick, how it's pointing to the C stick, this like C up, down, left, right.
Oh, okay, I can see now. Sorry, I was looking at the bottom right. Okay, I'm glad that's the case then. Oh, at least that's what was even worse for me. I'm like, what? It seemed like there was such a better way to do this, but yeah, it's still really like left and down. Like there must have been very specific reasons for them to choose left and down as those top 2 buttons, you know, or the top left.
But they obviously thought it was like an important thing. The thing that throws me is that ZL is the Z button, and then the L button is it's actually called like, what is it? Like on the Switch it's called the L button. So you've got 2 shoulder buttons. ZL corresponds to the Z button on the 64 controller. But I don't know, it psychologically was like throwing me because it's like I don't remember any 64 game really that I used the L button, like because you'd almost always be holding it in the middle.
If they put something like Mischief Maker on here, then that's a game that uses the D-pad. Then you'd need I'm fairly certain that uses the L button. But it's just, this is so, I know this is just Nintendo's way of, that they do stuff, but why not allow people to remap? It would just solve the issue. But anyway, like it still doesn't solve the fact that the games that run like absolute arse. Like it's just, the biggest thing for me, the biggest disappointing thing is obviously it's frustrating for people that have spent the money and they haven't got the experience.
And you can't get a refund.
Yeah.
There's no way to get a refund.
The biggest thing for me, as someone that still hasn't tried it firsthand, is this is going to be a lot of people's first experience playing a lot of these games. And they're just going to say, unless they're following the news, they're just gonna be like, this is crap. Like,
this
this
sucks.
doesn't feel right.
I wanted to play Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, and
Dang
then
it.
they're gonna bounce off or whatever. They've obviously got a year to play it now because they can't buy a month of it. But the thing is, like, it's gonna sour everyone's first experience. If you haven't played Ocarina of Time before and you jump into this, what a horrible way to experience this first time. You know?
Yeah, look, but you know the other thing is for me, Swinny, is that, you know, I'm a big like CRT purist, right, in general. And, you know, not to get too like, I'm certainly not gatekeeping. I do feel that Nintendo and Super Nintendo games translate pretty well on like flat screen LCDs, like all that kind of stuff, right? It's not the intended artistic design of it, but it still looks good. But I do find personally that PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn and the Nintendo 64 suffer the most out of any of them, because they really, really trying to take advantage of the natural effects of a CRT when displaying an image and blending things and blurring things, and, you know, the way that they were presenting stuff and trying to get away with things like from a foggy perspective that looked good. Like, and, you know, I've fired up Mario Kart 64, and that looks really cool on a CRT. But it looks like the way they've done it here and the way they've upscaled the actual textures, it's so like in your face. Like the polygons are so blocky, and then there's like no filters in this emulator. It's just like, we're gonna display a chunky ass pixel on a right next to a weird like rendered upscaled polygon, and it's like, fuck, it just doesn't look right, man. Like,
God, it's
people are gonna
thing.
go Ocarina of Time, oh, that's a shit game. What, like these three old guys on this bigwig podcast talking about.
It's a great thing we haven't got that N64 Mini Classic yet, because at least they can update this.
Well, you know, and going to that, like, I never really thought they'd release a 64 Mini. I thought they would always do a Game Boy Mini if they were going to do something like that. But holy shit, like, it just shows that they don't know what they're doing in a weird way with the emulation. And I have played the Wii U emulation, and I've found it to be very poor, but it's amazing. It's worse. Like, how is it fucking worse on the Switch? It's like, I don't accept for a second when people say, oh, this is Nintendo. This is beyond Nintendo, man. This is not like normally what Nintendo does with this kind of stuff. Like, the Super NES emulation's good. The NES is good. The Mega Drive's good. This freaking like 64 one, it's totally unacceptable, man. And I can say this right now. If they have, for sure they must have, like, the Game Boy, like, you know, ready to go. I feel like as a gesture to people, they should release it early. Like, I'm sure that they have it lined up for next year, right? To go, oh, we've got the Game Boy collection now as part of the expansion pack.
No doubt.
I think that they need to release it early. Like, you know, this is a total cock up. Like, they've really screwed this up. And my last point that I just want to mention is, and this just shows the lack of like QA and passion for this stuff, right? They release a Switch OLED, right? So I almost always play on handheld.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Mike hasn't referenced. We'll talk about it next week, Mike, when you get to play it. But Mike caved and bought a Switch OLED, of course. That they freaking have a permanent display over the 64 emulator, which you can't get rid of, right? Which shows like this blurry background and all this other kind of crap, right? When I've got an OLED screen. So show me a pure black screen and it will just fade away. I won't see it. But not just that, it's that I'll get burn-in if I play these games for too long, because it's a static overlay. Like, what the hell, Nintendo, man? You got no passion here. What the, like, that just pisses me off so much.
They didn't think that through at all. Damn.
It's just, I don't care. Like, it's actually shocking to me. So, huge
there is a solution
down.
to your problems.
Yeah.
You want to get yourself a Super Pi.
No, that's
yourself a little
okay.
A little emulator of your own.
You're like showing. I have a lot of RetroPies and stuff like that. They are pretty bad emulators as well. Like, almost just as bad as this. So you are not a good judge of that.
Fair enough.
All right, let's move on to
these do look pretty cool though.
Yeah, they look like a SNES classic that you were trying to show me. I think my baby's crying in the background. Let's move on to the next segment, Mike. Go on, Swinny. I was like more just trying to shut up, Mike.
Okay. All good. All right. So this week was the release of probably the most obscure game I'm ever going to talk about on this show, outside of maybe some dodgy mobile game I'll randomly play one day, but a game by the name of Light Fairytale Episode 2 specifically. So what this game is actually, well, by the, what you can tell by the name, it's the second part of a game. But the first game came out 2 years ago, and I randomly saw it as a new release on the Xbox Store. I'm like, this looks really cool. I haven't heard of this. It's like, it looks like a PS1 JRPG, like your Final Fantasy VII style, and it was cheap. And so I purchased it, and I was really surprised. I really enjoyed it. A very bite-sized game. We're talking like a 3-hour game or so. But I really liked it. So it's obviously 2 years later, we've finally got the second part of it. And the reason why it's taken so long is these games are made by one person. So it's a one-person
Wow.
studio called Neko.works specifically. I read in there on their page you pronounce the dot. And this is a French developer, and they clearly have a real deep love for RPG, so much so that the official YouTube channel even has like Final Fantasy VI Let's Plays on it and stuff for
That's
the actual
cool.
studio. And the original series was actually kickstarted, well, attempted to kickstart. It actually failed, and they developed a game called Super Knight Riders to actually, obviously, to like, it seemed like that game was something that could put out with less hassle than a full-blown RPG. And that helped fund the development of the episode 1, and now we've finally got episode 2. So I believe it came out in Steam a couple of months ago, but it finally came out on Xbox. I think it's coming out to PS4 later this year, but had a chance to play through it. So just like the first game, pretty short experience, but I knew that going in. We're talking about, about 3 to 4 hour game, a little bit more just for clean up some completionist stuff. But it's, for anyone that can see the footage, it's a turn-based RPG in the vein of your PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy games. And it's very much a throwback in many ways. It's got some really, really nice graphics, kind of very much, it's chibi style, but then it's just, I don't know, it's just got a really nice look to it. And it's actually got some really nice music as well. So from a presentation standpoint, the games are really, really strong as well. Episode 1 was set in almost like a Midgar style city that's, very much like Final Fantasy VII. And episode 2 takes place in like icy wastes. So I think from an environmental standpoint, doesn't look as nice, but that's just the story needed to go in that direction. But yeah, from I guess what the game plays like, so the battles are pretty standard JRPG stuff, but it's nice. Sometimes it's, a game doesn't want to reinvent the wheel. It just wants to pay homage to, games that came before. Does have a neat little orb system, where you're equipping orbs against your different gear for elemental attack or defense. A little bit of strategy there, but it can get a little unbalanced in places. But this is where these games actually are a little unique in the sense that there are limited battles. So it's not like you can fight as many enemies as you want. There's actually zones you go into where you'll encounter the enemies. And once you've encountered, say, 3 or 4 enemies in that zone, it then clears that zone. So there's no way to actually grind to get overpowered in it. But it's also not a game it's not really designed around that. As I said, it's a short experience. So it's not like you're building these characters up for an epic journey. You're just kind of playing through and enjoying the story. And the story is nice. It's nothing special, but it's got fun characters and some fun dialogue. It does pick up directly from the first episode. And honestly, because it's been about 2 years, I'd forgotten about the events of the first game. So I kind of wish I would have replayed the first game a bit, because your progress actually carries over your character levels and your equipment and items and everything.
I was about to ask. That's cool.
Yeah, it does. But because it's been a while, if you asked me, anything about where I was at the end of the first game, other than I remember your character jumping off a cliff, right? And that's where this game picks up. So I think if anyone did like the first game and it's been a while, should probably replay it leading into this. I think you'll probably, it'll probably seamlessly transition a lot more. So yeah, look, overall, I think it's a really, really fun little game. Just keep your expectations in check. So it was for launch, it was $12. It's $15 normally, so it's obviously not a super expensive game, but it's also only about a 3 to 4 hour game. So keep that in mind. I think I did enjoy the first episode a little bit more, but this was still fun. And I'm keen to see where the story goes. There was part of me that was worried we'd never get the number two, so I'm just happy that the Neko.works was able to get there.
Can I just ask, just sorry to interrupt, on the number 2 thing. You know how it's called episode 2? Is it like, that made me think it's more like the Telltale style episode, but is it like almost a sequel or?
Well, I mean, they're both just separate releases. So they're not like, it's not DLC for the first game or anything, but it's almost like, technically speaking, they're different games. But if you were to think about that, yeah, it's an episodic game in some ways. But I think that, you know, again, this is a very independent developer. So obviously they're only able to work on a schedule that makes sense for what they can do. But yeah, I guess the last thing I wanted to say was, you know, this was a failed Kickstarter project. We don't hear about the failures very often, especially ones that end up making their way to a full release eventually. So I just wanted to say, you know, get out there and support those developers wherever you can by buying their games, because I think that these are the people that really, really need it. So,
no, that's fair enough. That looks pretty cool. All right, well, let's get into our final segment for the night. And it's a rather spooky segment. Ooh. So it's time to get spooky as the Bigwig crew indulges in some super scary games to celebrate Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah. Tell us about your super scary game.
I played a very extremely scary game. So scary in the tradition of all slasher films, was released itself on Halloween 2 years ago to the day this game was released. And that scary game is Luigi's Mansion 3.
Luigi's Mansion 3.
The second time we've mentioned it today because the Lego is coming out for this game.
So, foreshadowing, that's what that was.
So I bought this game, I think on release from memory, and okay, so this is what happened. I played it a little bit, and then my son at the time, who's obviously 2 years younger, found it way too scary. And for some reason I thought this is kind of like a funny game to play with him. And yeah, it just freaked him out. So it is spooky. There you go. It can be spooky.
Well, it is for a 3-year-old. Yeah.
Hey, don't dox him. No, I think he was 2 at the time. So yeah, like, and when I first played it, I was like, okay, yeah, it's pretty decent. I never really clicked with the GameCube Luigi's Mansion, and then probably less so Dark Moon. I played a bit of that, maybe a couple of hours of that on the 3DS. I guess, you know, now people have to refer to it as Luigi's Mansion 2. And yeah, having jumped back into this for this week, I really love this game. Like, this game is pretty awesome. Like,
it's a really cool game, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely pays to crack through this game a little bit if you're not 100% clicking with it instantly. Like, you know, for me, when I first started playing, I'm like, okay. I keep playing it, and I was like, okay, I want to try to finish it. I'm probably, I'd say 80% the way through the game. Like, it's pretty clear with, you know, in terms of the structure of the game. And yeah, it's just a really awesome game, you know, highly recommended to people, you know, with young kids as well. Like, you know, obviously not 2-year-olds maybe like in my case, but more like a 4-year-old or 5-year-old and beyond. And there's really cool like mechanics in this game. And what I really enjoy about it is, you know, you've got a very set grouping of mechanics pretty early in the game, including the new addition in this game, which is Gooigi, which can be a co-op character. An awesome name. Love the name. Makes me laugh every time. And, you know, just like the dynamic between those two characters, it's pretty cool what they've done there. Like, you know, Gooigi has some abilities that Luigi doesn't. And just, you know, they explore it really well in a really true Nintendo way. I think Next Level made this game, but it's got a very Nintendo vibe all over it in terms of its puzzle solving. And it's just a really like fun game to play, and, you know, very easy to pick up and go and sort of go, okay, you know, like I'll spend half an hour with this game. Like, you know, if you're watching the YouTube clip of the potty, you know, like we're just seeing the scraper mode. So like when they released the DLC to this game, it was all multiplayer DLC. I find this so bizarre that they've done this. I feel like everyone would want more story DLC for this game. I don't know anyone who's talking about this game from a multiplayer perspective. And they've always tried to push that angle with this game, which I thought was a bit weird. And I definitely think with the Nintendo Switch Online, one of the first things that they'll release, if they do additional DLC, they'll release like the DLC for this game for free, because I'm sure no one buys it. But going back to the game, like as I said, really love it. Love the writing in the game, just like the structure of it and everything. It's really awesome, and yeah, really enjoying it, and definitely will finish it. I will say one thing just quickly, Swinny, is I do not see myself completing this game. So
bummer.
using the completionist style of complete it versus finish it, I think I'll be a finish it type of game, which is unusual for me with Nintendo games like this.
It's also a hell of a looker. Like
it looks really good.
We've kind of gotten used to the fact that a lot of current day Nintendo games aren't going to be that technically impressive from a visual standpoint. Now, I know this is very different in what it has to achieve and render versus, an open world game, but it just, I think it just goes to show that the Switch can actually be impressive with, its visuals sometimes. So.
Yeah, and that's the art style, right? So... it's the same to me as Breath of the Wild, where I think that game looks awesome and stacks up against a lot of PS4 releases because of its art style and consistency with it. But having said that, with the OLED, up there with Astral Chain, Tetris Effect Connected, this game, and Metroid Dread, to be fair, like they're just really awesome games to play on the OLED because the colors are so vibrant in this game, and there's lots of blacks and darks and just like, all the kind of contrasting colors. It just really pops on the OLED. And I've like totally acclimatized myself to the OLED now. Whenever I see the real normal Switches now, it's disgusting. Like I can't go back. Like there's no way I can go back.
OLED snub.
I could not go back. I could not get like a Switch Lite either. I don't think. I think it would be like, nah, it just wouldn't look right. So that's me. I will finish this game, but I will not complete it because there seems to be a lot to do in this game, and I'm just like, it's really fun, but it's like a solid like 7 or 8 out of 10. It's not one of those games like Metroid Dread. I'll probably go back to Metroid Dread, to be honest, and try to do the under 4 hours for hard mode. So that's me.
Jeez,
Mike,
good luck.
Going to you.
Over to me. Cool. So the game that I've been playing is Outlast. Well, I played a couple of games, but the first one was Outlast. Specifically on the Switch, because I wanted to be able to do it from bed with headphones on, because it's the kind of game that I think you want to immerse yourself in that experience that way. It originally actually came out all the way back in 2013, so it's not a recent game by any means, but I never actually got into it. And I'm a bit of a fan of the genre in the sense that I've played most of the Amnesia games, although I haven't completed all of them. Alien Isolation is still, to this day, one of my favorite games of all time. So if you guys haven't played it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that's on my to-do list.
It's a really, really brilliant game. It's a gem of a game in so many ways, because I think... I actually think I'm the only person out of my entire group of known friends that's played that game, which is a bit strange. But anyway, so with Outlast, I'm not. I mean, I have no idea how far into the game I am. I don't know much about it. I didn't want any spoilers. I didn't look up how long this game takes to finish or anything like that. But I'm a little bit of the way into it, and so far it's kind of what I expected. Again, in the same sort of vein as Alien Isolation, there's a lot of suspense building. There's a lot of scripted scares. There's a lot of stealth, because much like a lot of the games in this genre, you're quite powerless. You don't have guns. You don't have anything to really defend yourself with. You're running away a lot of the time. You're hiding a lot of the time. And it's what makes the game, I think, what it is. It's a really cool in that sense. Likewise, I don't know if we have any footage for it, but I'll talk about it anyway.
Sorry, I just want to mention something about Atlas quickly.
Of course.
Two things actually. First of all, yes, Indigo, I checked if that footage was age gated or not for our B-roll, even though it probably should be age gated.
Pretty full on game. Is all I can say.
We should just quickly say, like, just to bring the audience in. So the way it works on YouTube, weirdly, because we got flagged one time for a video and we went back and it was like this video isn't age gated that we've
It was
sourced
Assassin's
from.
Creed movie trailer.
Yeah. And then YouTube, like, to their credit, actually said, well, okay, good point. Right? Like, we flagged your video. Someone's flagged it manually, weirdly enough. And then, yeah, they went back and they said no. So I thought of that when you did the through. I was like, shit,
I was going to interrupt, but I'm like, no, I'll wait for Mike to finish what he's saying. And the second thing is you could not pay me to play this game.
Why?
I've actually seen a lot of Outlast in the past. And that game looks absolutely terrifying. So you could not pay me.
It is.
Swinny, so,
Good jump scares.
I'm actually the same as you. Like, I played a little bit of, like, even the demo for Village, Resident Evil Village, which we might talk about soon. That scared the shit out of me, even the demo, right? And I played a bit of Final Fantasy VII, and I'm like, I can't play this game. This game's scaring the hell out of me, right?
Really?
But I'm a good sport about it, Swinny. I feel like if someone dared me, okay, finish Resident Evil 7 or play Resident Evil 7 VR, I would do it, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like no matter what, like, what would have to happen with the show or something like that for you to go, yeah, okay, I'll play Resident Evil 7 VR?
Oh no, not VR. Like, the thing is,
So
like,
there's
Resident Evil
nothing.
games,
So, like, if we had 1 million subscribers on our YouTube channel, you wouldn't do it.
let's look. I'm sure at some point there's a tipping point. But no, but what I'm saying
That's how we
is
get in.
you could not like pay me to play a game like Outlast because it's not all what I want from a video game. Like, I'm just not into horror, in that kind of horror. I like thrillers and stuff. But anyway, that's all I just wanted to say, and I wanted to give you a flag that it wasn't age-gated.
Yeah, no, and by the way, the game is, other than the gory bits, it's I can't even talk about some of the stuff that's in the game. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, there's some really gross stuff in that game.
Really gross stuff, yeah.
But Resident Evil.
So just quickly on on the whole genre in general, I love those kind of games, and I tend to play them I don't play them during the day because I think it ruins the experience. If I play this, I like to play it properly, and I play them at night with headphones on, dark room. And it all stemmed from an experience I had when I was, still back in high school. And I got Aliens versus Predator 2, and I played as the Marine. And Harvey Norman had this clearance. I wouldn't even call it a VR headset. I think I told you guys the story before. It was basically, it looked like a VR headset, and it just had these prisms. And somehow with the CRT, it kind of gave you a more immersive experience because it would kill off your peripheral vision, and you just have the actual game that you're focusing on with headphones on. Dudes, I reckon my heart went to like 180 beats per minute at least in that game, where I actually had to physically put it down. I was by myself. I was about 13 or 14 or whatever the hell it was. And it was one of the scariest experiences I've ever had. The thing is, though, I've been so desensitized because I've played so many games after that where I don't really get that feeling anymore. I don't get that same level of scare. I still get jump scares because we all do. It's impossible because you can't predict that kind of stuff. But to me, I enjoy the experience of getting into those weird, creepy games. Now, the one experience that, interestingly enough, into God, I didn't find anywhere near as scary, at least not yet, as far as I am into the game, is Resident Evil Village. So I started playing that one as well. I've been meaning to play it because I played Resident Evil 7, finished it, loved it. Only ever experienced a little bit of the VR on PSVR, and it was pretty damn sweet, amazing experience. But Village so far has been excellent. I think I love the new direction that the games have gone into. Bearing in mind that I think I've played most of the Resident Evil games that have come out since the original one, way back when, and even before that, Alone in the Dark and all those games that it kind of predated Resident Evil, I played as well. But the direction that it's gone into now, it's a first-person survival horror that still has the shooting elements, but it's balanced in such a way that you're not overpowered. You're always the underdog. Good jump scares, excellent graphics, awesome location, and it's set in East Europe in a particular. Again, not to dox people are gonna know, but it is fascinating. The only thing that ruins the immersion a little bit is I'm playing it and I'm like, okay, so they talk about local things in the local language, but then they have signs in English and freaking labels in English and a bunch of shit. And I'm like, it's a weird mishmash. And I couldn't change voices to the local dialect because that would have been doubly cool with subtitles and stuff.
I can take the
amazing
voices,
game.
right? Like that they're in English, but I'm kind of with you. I don't like when there's not localized signs.
It's weird. It's kind of there was this it took me out of the experience a little bit actually seeing them.
I think it depends if the signs are just there for visual or if they're actually also there to guide the player, because then that changes, I think, how you have to approach that.
Sure.
I mean, it's this particular sign that I'm thinking of is quite early on, and that's the first one that I noticed, and it was to guide you towards this is where there's a workshop, this is where this blah blah blah. But it still kind of just felt a bit weird because the whole rest of the world is so crafted to immerse you into it, and then but anyway, minor thing. Other than that, and I can't ruin the story, I can't ruin anything about the game itself, but it's a fantastic game so far. Absolutely love it.
Cool. And just a shout out for anyone, Resident Evil Code Veronica X HD is currently free as a Games of Gold, so that'll if anyone's interested, that's backwards compatible on Xbox Series and all that stuff. So
still so strange with the Resident Evil, because you're right, like about the phases, but that the best-selling Resident Evil game is not the one that you would expect. Like everyone thinks like Resident Evil 2, 1, 6, 4, 7, but it's 5 and 6.
It's 5.
In that order are the best sellers. Like what? They're like almost the most hated of the series.
I thought 4 would be the biggest seller, especially given how many platforms it's on now.
Yeah, that's interesting. But it's going gangbusters, Resident Evil again. And you're right, like it's like the new phase of it. So it's cool to see.
They just announced the DLC. There's some free DLC on the way as well. So
awesome.
Nice. All right, well, over to you, Swinny, to round up the spooky, and you're going to play a very spooky game.
Yeah, so I do we all had different kind of almost like takes on the mission to play a spooky Halloween game.
That wasn't what I said, but okay, whatever.
Well, we're playing games for Halloween.
It's really cool what we picked.
I picked what I feel is the most fitting game for a Halloween special, which is a game set on Halloween where you actually go trick-or-treating called Costume Quests.
Perfect.
Yes, so Costume Quest, for anyone doesn't know, came out about 11 years ago. So, yeah, back in October 2010. It's a Double Fine Productions game, and it came out pretty much on a whole bunch of stuff. PC, PS3, Xbox 360, as well as mobile platforms. So I remember when this game was announced back then that everyone's like, what the hell? Double Fine's making an RPG? That's really, really weird. But when you get into it, it makes sense, makes so much sense. And I only played probably about the first third of the game. It's not a long game, but I kind of just wanted to re-experience, the tone and the characters and the comedy and everything, because I have beaten this game in the past, and I've beaten the sequel a couple times actually, and I've beaten the sequel a couple times, and I'm a huge fan of this game. It's one of my favorite kind of little bite-sized RPGs that I've ever played. It's just really, really funny. The way they weave the costume mechanics into the battle mechanics, I think, is just absolutely genius. It's a really great RPG for beginners as well and kids. It's not super easy, but it's also not super hard, and it's very forgiving when you have to retry. And what I realized is, I mentioned it before with Underhero, and we talked about Echo Generation. The more and more I realize, I'm talking about these games that play like Paper Mario, or I guess to correct that, they play like Mario RPG. And it just really made me realize this week how influential Super Mario RPG actually was. It's kind of wild. I don't think it was the first game ever to include some action element in a turn-based battler. I'm not sure. I'm just covering myself there, but it's definitely the one that set off and influenced so many people. Yeah. But going back to Costume Quest, I think the way they weave Halloween into everything is just great. Like I mentioned before, you literally go trick-or-treating, and you could go up to a door and you get candy, which is the currency of the game, or you get a battle from an enemy, and it's just cool. Like, it's so cool. And it's just so funny. They made an animated series from it as well. Unfortunately, I've never seen that. And I think the sequel, which came out 4 years later, also around Halloween as well, I think is even better. That came out both on... That also came... It was like cross-generation, so that was even on more platforms. But yeah, I'm just absolutely adore this game. And I did read one YouTube comment that just made me, well, you'll see what this comment is. So someone said, I played this game when I was 4, forgot the name. I'm so happy I remember it now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm like, oh my God, that makes me feel so old seeing someone saying, it's like that situation when you're like, man, I can't remember that name of the game back in the 80s when I played as a kid or early 90s. And that's, we're getting old. We're getting old.
Yeah, like I saw the definition of this, generation where they go, it's a generation that people don't have any memory of September 11. I'm like, whoa, what? Like,
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, isn't it?
kind of wild.
But
like,
there was one final thing. Was I actually played this on backwards compatibility on Series X, and the game really didn't run very well, and I think it never ran well to begin with. So I ended up actually rebuying it on Steam because it was like $3 at the moment, and it still runs at 30 frames a second.
Oh, no.
I'm like, come
Damn
on.
it.
Anyway, it's not a game you're playing for that kind of stuff, but I did find that
It's LA Noir all over again.
Yeah.
I gotta say with that, man, like I'm getting like such a snob with frame rate. Like there's outside of certain exceptions, like I'm getting so sick of games being like 30 frames per second. Just when it feels like it absolutely doesn't need to be. Like I probably won't be getting many games for the Switch anymore. But no, that's awesome actually. I'd imagine the writing is amazing in Costume Quest given Double Fine.
I think it's very good. It's very, when you're playing games where you're playing as kids, I think, and just like any kind of media, writing as kids talking is such a balancing act. And I think they nail it. There's a lot of sarcasm, but I think they nail it.
Yeah, I always think South Park probably does it the best out of any media, like, and it's been around for 20 plus years or 30 years, I guess. No, interesting. Yeah, and Double Fine's really weird for me. Like, I love the writing, and I'm a huge fan of good writing, and they genuinely have good writing, but I just never click with any of their games. But
have you played Stacking? You should try that game. That's awesome. I love Stacking so much.
Yeah, I just couldn't get into Psychonauts too. I'm 100% confident it's going to be a Game of the Year nominee. So I definitely want to play it, but yeah, I don't know. It's never clicked with me. All right, cool. Well, that rounds us up for the show this week. We have no things in the run sheet around special features for next week or anything that's happening. I'm just trying to quickly pull up.
Can I put in the special feature that I will once again hype my Kemco RPG tier list? So it'll be in the front end and the back end of the show each episode.
No, excellent. I was just trying to see if there's any big games coming out next week, but some things have shifted, unfortunately, haven't they? Like, just from a timing perspective. Forza Horizon 5's coming out.
So, Mike, you interested in playing that?
Oh, absolutely will be.
No, I'm playing it as well.
You could review it next week then.
Okay.
Maybe
You're
impressions.
Delegate.
No, I'm gonna, because it's on Game Pass, PC as well. So I'm gonna play that as well.
Review
so
it.
yeah, we'll chat about Forza Horizon 5 next week. But with that, bye bye.
Adios.
Ciao.